Okay, I'm gonna kind of give you the bull thesis. I've been very vocally bullish over the course of the last probably few weeks, really, and I kind of want to explain a little bit more in detail without just kind of the engagement battering of the feed on Twitter, and instead kind of just give you the logic behind my sense of bullishness or kind of unrelenting bullishness. And I think specifically in regards to BTC, probably should be like the key thought process for now. A lot of alts are a little bit ropier in terms of the price action on them, or at least a little bit more volatile, which we come to expect anyway. But I primarily want to focus on BTC, the reasons for the BTC bullishness, and kind of laying out the path the way that I see it, and some of the factors that I'm looking for increasing the confidence in the bullish playout, and some areas, of course, on the other side that if we start to fail, that I would have some concerns. Chat a little bit about the kind of psychology as well and the overall position of Twitter and where we are, or where I believe that we are from a psychological perspective in this overall thought process. So what we'll do is we'll, and obviously point here as well is that I'm biased given that I've got a 60,000 entry on BTC spot and leverage position. So, you know, there is an element of that in here as well. So let me hide this quickly and we'll go through everything. So from a higher time frame perspective, the first real change for me and the reason for taking that entry is this point in time here. Okay, this was a very important time for me structurally and for the actual overall bias and thought process that I had through here. So this was the first time that we had actually seen a clear high put in from the market. This was the first time that the market had pushed into a high in line with the structure that we had been seeing so far on BTC. And this was a big point for us. We know that overall on a monthly time frame that this is very much just that consolidation region. So when we switch to a monthly, we know that this is just consolidation. So there's nothing kind of dramatic through that area there. And then what we get through here is then the kind of independent structure of the slightly lower time frames. The 3-day change here is a very important one for me because what it did is it set the scene for the potential for the breakout, given the fact that against all of these prior highs, this is the first one that is actually stuck. Okay, this is the first one here that's actually stuck in terms of a break, and therefore we have the potential at that point in time for a change in the structure for overall BTC. This move here was the one that basically, once we get this higher high form, we've got two options really that go from there. Number one is that we just continue higher straight away. And the second one is that we actually confirm the new uptrend. In order to confirm the new uptrend, we need a high and a higher low. Okay, so we need that higher high, we need that higher low. And one of the things when we're selling off here, the thought process has to be positive, optimistic, and looking forward to a higher low scenario building up. And so that's why the position was taken here. So what we do is we've got that high. We've got here at the moment our higher low scenario area. And we've now got the push into a fresh high again. So even kind of locally within here, if we go to kind of like the daily time frame, we can see this market structure here. Good daily uptrending, very good position for BTC to be in. So we set the scenes within here, and what we're doing really is we're doing the investigation into this 7-month consolidation. We're still staying on the higher time frames, but we're now looking for signs that that may be preparing to break out of this 7-month region instead of just continuing the chop. And I think unlike the other areas and the other times that we've challenged this resistance point around 67, 68,000, this is the first time that we have the uptrending structure on the higher time frame to support it. Okay, so it adds a lot of belief and confidence in my personal thought process that this is leading towards a strong breakout of this region. So what we get through here then on kind of like lower time frames is this daily picture here. And I think the daily is probably an important one for us for now. And in this zone here, we now have a potential for a new invalidation back below 60,000 here. We don't want to see the daily structure change again. We don't want to see the uptrend lost. We want to see the continuation and the support of that leading to the breakout. So we don't really want to see this low go here on the daily, and we can use the daily market structure of here, 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 and now here as our fresh tracking for this trend itself. So we've got nice clean structure on the daily. We've got nice clean structure on the 3-day. The other thing that we've got through here, and kind of speaking to more of the psychology perspective, obviously the technical side of things, I'm still indicating very strongly I think this leads to a big breakout through this zone. Psychologically, I think the market is fucked. And I think the market is fucked for a couple of reasons. Number one, the memes have really drawn the attention significantly over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Very much so. To the point that I think the BTC is almost forgotten. And not only is it forgotten, I think that the BTC price action historically has led to the fact that people don't really care about it as much. And so you've got memes that are drawing a lot of attention. You've got memes that are drawing a lot of potential capital from the market, not necessarily in a kind of market moving way for BTC, given the size of that market, but certainly from kind of the people in the social circles that we see, have spent a lot more time focusing on memes and how they can get value from memes versus trying to trade BTC. So we've got this situation where there's not a lot of focus on this market. There's not a lot of focus on the potential for BTC. There's actually far greater focus on getting value from alts or kind of identifying communities or whatever other metrics you're using for meme coins. So I think attention is split away from BTC. The next thing that I think is that during this whole price region here, right, during this whole area of BTC, there was a very common thought process which I fell into, right, and lots of people did, and I think the thought process is still absolutely fine, is basically every time that we got up to here, we were super bullish. Okay, we were super bullish. So we get up here and we'd say, shit, we're going to break out again. We're going to go, this could be 100K. And then we'd fail and we'd say, shit, well, we're back up here now. This is definitely 100K because we've been consolidating now for this. And then we'd fail again. And this one came up and we say, well, shit, it's definitely 100K now because we have this whole consolidation zone. And each of those times was incorrect. And what tends to happen is the longer a market does something, it takes us a little bit of time to acclimatize to it. It takes us a little bit of time to actually understand what's going on in the market. A lot of the time we spend it looking at lower time frame anyway, and so when we suddenly zoom out, we're like, shit, yeah, of course, it's just ranging, man. It's just 7 months of range. I can see that now. But when we live it and when we're in each moment of it, then suddenly it becomes a little bit different, okay? Each of those moments, each of those highs, each of those resistance touches come with their own set of emotion and psychology and kind of belief that this could be the one. So that happens throughout this course here. I think the problem that you have now is that the market has now changed its psychological tune in which it now believes that this is also going to be a rejection. So unlike these prior highs, what we have here is a scenario where people aren't looking at this optimistically because they remember this too well. So they remember those failed opportunities to break out, those failed attempts to break out. And that core memory, whether or not it's because you've been chopped to shit during this time, whether or not it's because you were just wrong in terms of your thought process, I think people are nervous when we get up to this level. I think there's actually a greater degree of nervousness around this high because of the history of this consolidation period. And I think once again, that leads itself into the BTC breakout thought process because a lot of people are de-risking, taking money off the table, coming into a resistance level, shorting this level, or unable to believe the fact that maybe this time is different in comparison to the last 7 months. So from attention being split into the fact that I think that people are ready to accept that this is just resistance now, it's a nice psychological environment for a breakout here on BTC, from my perspective. I think that from a kind of like a general mix, that's good. And I think that if this moves aggressively to the upside, I think a lot of people will be sidelined. I think a lot of people are sidelined now, and I think a lot more people will be sidelined or be tempted to short the market should this break to the upside. I don't think there's a lot of people who will get on board with this from kind of a group mentality perspective. And then the final point in that is that people are looking for a pullback. And the reason they're looking for a pullback is because the price action has been pretty aggressive from the 60K region. Right? We've done 59K up to this level here. We've done 15%. And if I take the actual kind of like timings from the low to the high, right, we've done that in 5 days, in these 6 days. And when we get price action that looks like that, there becomes a tendency from the market to wait for pullbacks or to not want to enter markets because the market is up aggressively in a short period of time. And because it's BTC, and because we're at a resistance point, and because of the history of this consolidation range, it just adds further fuel to that fire. So a lot of people are talking about getting back down to the 62K level, talking about kind of like coming down to the 64K. Maybe it happens, but again, just from overall thought process, I don't think that lends itself. I actually think it's better that this breaks from here, because I think there's a lot of people still waiting to try and catch an entry in this. And it feels as though that will be where the fuel comes if this starts breaking into the 70Ks. The last thing to probably just note on is also the fact that we're only 9% off all-time high. So, you know, in terms of where we are right now, this is a very strong market. This is a very, very strong market for where we are. My thought process overall, I've just kind of covered off, you know, fresh on the back of my psychological thought process for why I think this is a particularly strong point to break out. I also believe that this price action structure is very different to any other price action structure that we've had coming up to that resistance point. Again, we've now got the wonderful ability of hindsight to be able to look back and see this 7-month region from a zoomed out perspective. And I think that helps in determining that this structure is different than the prior attempts. We've got RSI as well, which may be helpful for us. The weekly setup here is a phenomenally strong bullish setup. When we get the RSI rotating back to the 50 level and pushing clear again, that very often signals the end of a corrective period for an uptrending market and time for a fresh leg. We've then got the daily with a really interesting reaction zone, which is around this kind of 67 region here. And you can see that for the last 7 months, BTC has really struggled to push above this 67 level. And it's here right now as well. And it's really struggled to get any momentum past here. It's where each of the highs has failed, and we haven't once pushed into the extreme since March. So we've never pushed into that overbought territory since March. One of the things that I'm looking for is contributing factors and additional confluence for reasons why the bulls are in control of this market. The momentum here will be a significant step in changing that. If the market does something that it's failed to do for the past 7 months, there's a very good chance and sign that you should believe what you're seeing in front of you. So when it comes to this area here, breaks above or into that overbought region are hugely significant because we've not seen them for the last 7 months. We've just seen a rejection pre-extreme every single time. RSI is set up very well here for continuation. We can also see the same on the awesome oscillator here. So when we look down here, we see exactly the same. We see these peaks mirrored in terms of the highs. Now, you'll notice this one here is still actually below this level. It's usually a good sign that momentum is going to kick in and expand to the upside, okay? So hopefully, fingers crossed, that's the situation that plays out. So from my perspective, I'm not just blindly bullish for no reason than to generate engagement on Twitter. I think there is a very good technical setup here that is different from the prior 67K touches, the 68K touches, 69K touches. I think there's something that sets up. There is a underlying higher time frame uptrend now into this level where we haven't had that same structure previously. Are we going to break it imminently? I don't know. I think the overall environment is set up very well to break out of this. I think it would make a lot of sense from a psychology perspective to break this now. Stocks are in a very good position still. Still a lot of potential stocks with upside as well. Indexes look very strong. And for me, the environment just feels right. There's a huge amount of technical confluence here. There's a huge amount of psychological confluence. And I think that if that 70K level goes, I think we close a weekly 77, 80K, somewhere in that zone. I think we go very aggressively. And obviously the fact that I haven't even touched on this one that played into the prior thought process, but MSTR with its 20% breakout of this region as well. So MSTR has already done that move. It's already broken clear of that 7-month consolidation. And I still think that that just paves the way for BTC to make the same move and to have that same push out of this zone. Even looking at this, and I use the example in the stream this week, but I said to people, you know, if you were looking at this and this was a 5-minute chart instead of a weekly, you would absolutely long this. You would absolutely say, and you would just meme this and you would say, here's the breakout. Looks as though it's breaking out. I'm going to long this. Stop loss below here and look for a next leg higher. Because this is BTC and because it comes with a huge amount of potential negative psychological history in regards to being chopped up, not believing things, getting scammed before, people don't believe it. If this was independently a 5-minute chart that I showed you, then you would get long on this, I'm sure. So that's the plan. And let's see it through.